You're listening to Superpowers of the Soul on the Superpower Up podcast, the show that elevates superpowers to the divine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Jennifer Urezzio, and I'm a superpower expert and founder of Soul Language, and this is Superpowers of the Soul. And today I'm with Isabel Hundt, who I adore, and the topic is, what does it mean to be empathic? Welcome, Isabel.
Thank you so much for having me, as always.
Yay! So, I always like to get everyone really understanding who you are on like a soul level, and as everything in this house goes off. So I really want people to understand what you consider the superpower of your soul for you. I think so often when master healers and master coaches are asked that question, they automatically go outside of themselves and go, hey, this is the way I help people, or this is my superpower for the world. But I really am interested in what you consider the superpower for your own soul, for your benefit and your utilization.
Mm-hmm. I like how you said that in the beginning. It's true. I'm a sociologist by trade, so it's always like, yeah, I help people. I do this and I do that. Well, what does it mean? Superpower for my soul, for myself. To give a shout out to the amazing Jennifer. I have worked with her for quite a few years, and I think the most significant for me are my soul languages, which are motivator, observer, and conductor. And through knowing those soul language, I really have been able to identify myself as a spiritual visionary, as a spiritual prophet to a degree, because I just see the world in a different light. It's sometimes when I talk to people, I'm like, wait a second, I see now how those people over here interfere with what you're doing right now. And so it's really interesting for me to identify that as my superpower, the way I interact with people, the way I work with people, like all of that is based exactly on those gifts, on that superpower of observation and being a spiritual world visionary.
Yeah, I love that. We also identify everyone the soul languages rather of your relationship with divinity.
Yeah.
And my mission with that is pioneer. And I always go, oh wait, yeah, here I am forging a new road for myself with divinity. And I think that's really important because so often we can kind of get bogged down in the, oh my God, why isn't life working for me? Why am I in struggle again? So, when you're that visionary, right, Isabel, it's really important, like, oh wait, we're always going to be a little out in front, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong. We're not struggling. We're just on the cusp of something new and exciting.
Yeah, sitting still is a bit of a struggle.
I mean, there's this song, I forget the woman's name, but the line is something like, I'm going to paraphrase, like, taking steps is easier, standing still is the hardest thing to do. And, and being in that stillness and being in that pause and actually having to kind of sit in the knowing that you're loved and supported, even if you're not witnessing it or doing something about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what do you consider your sacred purpose?
Ooh, my sacred purpose. That is something that has changed so much over the years. Every time I move a step forward, it seems to be changing a little bit. My sacred purpose is, in one word, celebration. And I have been working with that for over almost 8 years now. And what that really means is that no matter what is in front of me and who I work with or what the issue is, there is something to be celebrated in that. And sometimes this is difficult because even in a hard situation, when I think about, oh my gosh, okay, my sacred purpose, my life purpose is celebration. What am I supposed to celebrate in that? Because it doesn't feel good at all. But having shifted this way, even when people do something to me or when I have tough conversations and I ask myself this question, I always go back to being able to forgive, not just myself, but those that I interact with as well. And with forgiveness comes love. You can respond from a place of love. And so that reminder of having celebration, my sacred purpose, has shifted so much every time I move a step further, every time I take myself to a new level, because the meaning just expands of that. And it often feels a little bit more challenging the more you're out there to find the things that you can celebrate, especially being a social warrior. Like I look at especially social issues on a broader spectrum. Sometimes I can get really exhausting. It's like, oh God, what do they all like? Do they all want to just destroy themselves? Like, what is the issue? What is the problem? But then finding that place of celebration within it, that's the challenge for me. And it's actually a good challenge.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, and I want the listeners to really understand this. Like, your sacred purpose is not really changing, your definition and understanding of it changing. And that's the deepening, right? That's the knowing. And if you notice, everyone, Isabel didn't talk about, she's a coach, she's an author, she's a speaker. She didn't talk about that as the sacred purpose. It was much deeper, much more of a being state, much more of, something that's kind of intangible, but very tangible when you understand it. And I think that when people start to understand sacred purpose in this way, there's a new sense of freedom, even though it might be sometimes difficult to kind of express it fully, as celebration, as you're out in that world going, oh my God, what are you people doing? And I think, also that's part of that warrior nature of, as warriors, we can always see, that kind of direction that people get to go into. So they'll be free and they'll be closer to whatever they call their higher power, and they'll feel more whole and complete. And we don't understand how anyone else cannot not see it, right? We're like, what? Wait, what? Do you not see that? And so I think there's this delicate balance of, finding that unity within all of us. And then going, okay, what's my role? And then handing the rest over to whatever you call your higher power.
Yeah. Yep. It's tough because especially when you're an empath and it, sometimes it feels like we can't really control anything, which is not the truth. It just sometimes feels like that. And so you find whatever you think you can control, but usually that is from like ego based, and your ego is like, sure, we can control all of that. And your soul is like, no, you don't have to. And so it's definitely like, I can't just do my part and then let God do the rest. I need to do all of it.
Delicate dance, which we're going to be going into more deeply after the break. But before we do our break here, tell people how to get in touch with you.
Yes, the easiest. I keep it simple because sometimes in life we just need things to be simple. It's all on my website, isabelhundt.com. It's ISABELHUNDT.com, where you can find how to connect with me. You can send me an email through that. You can find everything about my speaking, my coaching, everything.
Great. Okay, everyone, stay tuned because we're going to be talking about what does it mean to be an empathic.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. This is Jennifer Urezzio, and I'm a superpower expert and founder of Soul Language, and I'm with Isabel Hundt today, and we're talking about what does it mean to be empathic. Okay, so, this is like what I love about kind of the move stream of energy is this is becoming more and more of a mass consciousness kind of understanding. And with that, of course, there's a watering down of what it really truly means to be empathic. And, how do we utilize that all for our greatest good rather than sitting in, the overwhelm of it? So, Isabel, how do you define this word empathic?
I have, like I said, I have been working with highly sensitive people for years now. But over the last couple months, I would say, I have realized that many use that term being empathic as an excuse to hide out or separate it. Like, well, this is our group and this is the rest of the world and this is how we work and you don't get me, you don't understand how we feel, so just leave me alone. Like those kind of us versus them. And empathic work is for me almost spiritual work, or it being empathic means you're very connected to source, very connected to the divine. Being empathic allows us, because we are so highly sensitive, we can tap into our superpowers that some may not quite understand, how we're able to receive all those information or how we are able to connect with people, right? And we're here to, and to my people, I always say, we forge the way for people to understand what it means to create awareness on such a deep level. However, a lot of people identify being an empath don't actually even want to do the work because it can be a little bit painful as well, or a lot, because you have to let go and heal a lot more. And you have to dig much deeper to be able to really step into the role of being an empath, to being a forger, to being a spiritual prophet. And so that people can see you and people see, hey, this actually means to walk with a way or with a sense of awareness and with a deep knowing and peace. And that's where we're at, I think, right now, where a lot of empaths understand this is what's going on with me. They kind of grasp the task that's ahead of them, but they're kind of in between, like, I don't know, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I want to do this. I'd rather just stay over here and be okay with how I feel and what I feel. I love how, I want to read a quote to you that I found the other day. Her name is Joan. I forgot her last name, and she was on Soul Sunday. She wrote a book. It's called The Time Is Now. And when I read it, I was like, no, it makes perfect sense, because I always say empathic work is spiritual work. And I'll read it and I'll let you can tell me what you think about it. She says, prophetic spirituality is an attitude of the soul. It is not a set of spiritual practices, a collection of dogmas, however time honored. The person with the soul of a prophet sees what the rest of the world either cannot see or does not want to see, and uses that vision as a compass through life. The prophetic spirit comes to see the world as God sees the world and responds to it accordingly. I think that kind of summarizes pretty well what it means to be empathic and how we are called to use those very deep, highly sensitive, almost supernatural powers that we, in the way we experience the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to open up there,
Mm.
The first thing I want everyone to really, and I know Isabel doesn't mean this, but I want to, emphasize this point, is that we are all connected. I think, the people that are here to kind of forge that spiritual path, to unpack the next vision of consciousness, right, are highly sensitive, that are observing, feeling, knowing things on multiple levels. And that makes them just a tiny bit more kind of on the road of ahead of everyone than mass consciousness, right?
Right.
What that doesn't mean is that at any moment, anyone can kind of, again, tune into that, learn how to develop it. I think that structures, which are principles and laws and spiritual practices, help those that are less sensitive forge that road for themselves in a way that, giving something to fill a container that allows them to feel safe doing that and have more guides than normal. So I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. I'm losing my voice this morning. I also believe that, that what is the standard of what people are calling empaths are, and when you read anything about empaths, which of course, you take it always to the next level, which, I love, is people are going to talk about how you're kind of absorbing, aware, feeling other people's emotions, and which just all that means is that you're sensitive to not just your own energy, hopefully, but all the energies around you, which means that you're more in the knowing of being in the one than the average Joe. And I think that that's what people miss, right?
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about here. You're talking about, empathic is really is not just knowing that there's the fabric of the universe, but knowing that you are the fabric of the universe.
Yes.
And really understanding what you want to do with that information and your role to play. And I think that what I love about your work is the strict, and I mean that in the most beautiful use of that word, the strict rules, and again, using that beautifully, of being on that journey in a conscious way of integrity, right?
Yeah.
Right, because that's also what happens when people, think that or feel that they're empathic. They can fall into those relationships with individuals who give them guidelines and give them the teaching in an unconscious way. Which I know that annoys you as much as it annoys.
Well, yeah, I think it's, well, with our society, we always love to jump on board with what we realize is the most attractive to people, what people talk about the most right now. And especially when it comes to entrepreneurs, or we all want to survive, right, financially. So I think there's a lot of things or topics out there where people just create like all those, I can't even describe exactly how, but it's always like, we do it this way. And because we do it this way, we are the masters of manifestors. And I'm just like sitting here, I'm like, okay, you're speaking to empath, you're speaking to highly sensitive people, but you're just creating another religion within what you're trying to get out of.
Disharmony. That's the key here, right? You're creating disharmony. So I'll give everyone a tangible example. So when I started on my journey, I work with this master intuitive, which would frequently go out to dinner or in the supermarket and turn to the person next to her who she didn't know, or the aisle next to her, and go, listen, my team, my guides and teachers told me to tell you this.
Ooh.
I know. And even, as like new to the work, I was like, that's got to be wrong. Like that doesn't, like, that makes my stomach hurt and it feels icky. And, I think that as people are understanding this empathic, understanding themselves, right, to look to really fine tune the inner knowing of what feels whole and complete and what feels just icky and sticky, right? So in case you guys don't know, that is wrong. That's the only word I'm going to use.
Yes, I have that.
It's a violation of free will. That person is asking for support. They, like, what? I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you going to say, Isabel?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, it's true. Like it goes with the coaching world too. I had this many times in my own Facebook group where people felt the need to start coaching, and I'm hearing this message for you. I'm like, we do not do that here. For when you never ask if you're allowed to share your thoughts, you never ask if that's what they're looking for in terms of advice. So please do not or just do not get into that personal space without any permission.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of highly sensitive people get a little overly excited. I have this gift now, I'm realizing this gift, and now I have to use it with everyone. Wow, you need to find a balance between the flying high and the staying on the ground, and speaking to the people who are not where you're at. And that's a very fine line. You can't just go out and just like, I'm receiving this message for you.
Right.
Whatever you need to do with it. And people just, that's where the division comes in place, where people start, oh, this group is crazy. Why would we even listen to them?
Yeah.
Instead of kind of discovering the opportunity that may come with experiencing the world in this way. So, it's a fine line.
That's really key, right? I think so often, and you'll get, actually, if you're sensitive, you can hear my eye roll. People utilize their empathic, their intuitive, their connection as a way to elevate who they feel on a human level, right?
Yeah.
And my comment is, okay, if you think that this life is all so much fun and games, and if you think I think I'm any more special than the guy next door, you got another thing coming. Because, there's so many times which I wished, I took the little blue pill instead of being out of the matrix, right? Like, and, I think so often, people will utilize it as a way to set themselves apart rather than bring themselves to more wholeness and completeness. How do you feel about that?
Yes, I would absolutely agree. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about us versus them. And once you create a us versus them scenario, you have the power struggle right there in place. We're better than you. We have more abilities. We understand the world better than you. You're the mean people. You're the bad people. When in reality, they're just part of you. I am because you are. You are because I am. And because of the ability, the high level of awareness that we, for whatever reason, have been given being in this earthly body, helps us to connect and see deeper and look beyond what is the obvious on the outside. But most people still get scared because it's not the standard. It's not the normal. It's not how we do things. But if I can separate myself, I can take myself away from the responsibilities that come with being empathic, and then I don't have to take those on, right? If I create that us versus them scenario, and I can just blame the other side for me being not able to lift the way I should be because the people are so bad that I always feel like I'm drowning over here instead of taking responsibility for that.
Yeah.
So it always ends up in a power struggle when we create that us versus them scenario.
Yeah, you just gave me an idea for a Facebook Live this week. So I'm excited. Talking about how we create power struggles in our business. So as we're wrapping up here, if there's one thing that you want to kind of leave the listeners with so they can take away, that they can embody on their journey, what would it be?
The first thing that came to mind was lean into it. When you have more of a higher sensibility with you that comes with you, you experience the world on a higher level, just more intense. Lean into it. Allow yourself to lean into it, to experience it, knowing that you have the power to control how you want to feel about the world around you. That even within the chaos, you can actually feel really, really calm if you so choose. With the help of your guides, with divine help, anything is possible. Like, you can do this. So I think that the biggest message that I want people to understand is lean into it so you can move forward and you can forge the way for other people so that we understand on a social level, on the global social level, the oneness with each other, in particular the oneness with God. And all that goes back to the source of love.
Yeah. And, you made me think of something when you were talking. I never chose this path because I wanted to be greater than anyone else. I chose this path because I didn't want to suffer as I was suffering. I wanted to be closer to that higher power. I call that God, and I think that's really important to understand why you're on this spiritual journey and be really consciously honest with yourself about why you're on this spiritual journey, and see if it's, ego-based or, something bigger. Isabel, how do people get in touch with you before I ask my last question?
Again, through my website is the easiest way, isabelhundt.com, ISABLHUNDT. People forget the D before the T, dt.com, where you can find everything about me and how you can connect with me. Beautiful.
So, if you were a magnet on whatever you call your higher powers refrigerator, what would your magnet say? I know, I love that.
We're a magnet in the refrigerator. We're a higher power. Okay. What would it say? Oh boy, I should have thought of that. Always forgive and respond from a place of love.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It was great talking to you. We haven't spoken in a while, so yes. I loved talking to you. And everyone, if you liked anything that you heard today, you can contact me and all the other experts in the Superpower Net at superpowerexperts.com/the-net to find out more. Thank you, everyone. And don't forget, not just to find your connection, but be your connection.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz today.